Here in 1917, Stravinsky and Picasso arrived in Naples together, having previously been in Rome. Picasso was in Paris, but during the First World War that was only about 100 kilometers from the front line, so he needed to escape to Italy. Also, the man had had two disastrous love affairs, so really needed to get away from the city. Stravinsky had left Switzerland, where he was living on the shores of Lake Geneva, and ended up in Rome. But it wasn't long before the group journeyed south here, to Naples, at Garibaldi Central Station. On the train was Picasso, Stravinsky, impresario Sergei Diaghilev, and ballet dancer Leonid Massin. On the train, Picasso drew his famous portrait of the ballet dancer. On the bottom left corner, you can see it actually says El Massin. On the train to Naples, Picasso, 1917. The weather they had wasn't quite what they expected. Stravinsky said he expected azure blue and sunshine, but instead was greeted with a leaden sky and Vesuvius shrouded in an ominous, immovable mist. Whilst he was in Rome, Picasso took part in an exhibition of futurist paintings and, perhaps more importantly to him, met his future wife, Olga. Sergei Diaghilev, who would facilitate Stravinsky and Picasso eventually meeting, had moved his famous company, the Ballet Russe, to the Italian capital, and it was in his rented apartment that our two subjects would first meet. We're here in the Galleria Umberto Primo, which is somewhere that the two artists came during their stay in Naples. The impressive building, constructed between 1887 and 1890 and standing at 57 metres high, became something of a social hub in Naples, owing to its proximity to many of the city's most important landmarks. When Stravinsky and Picasso were here, they were immensely drunk and ended up urinating against one of the walls. Unfortunately for them, a police officer was also here, and meant that they were very quickly arrested for their public drunkenness. The two men said that they were international celebrities and therefore shouldn't be arrested, but the police officer wasn't buying it. But luckily for them, right across the street from here is the Real Teatro di San Carlo, the city's most important opera house. And they assured the police officer that everyone inside would address them with reverence as soon as they went in. And luckily for them, the second they stepped through the doors, everyone inside started referring to them as maestro, and they managed to escape scot-free. It's not really a surprise that this kind of thing happened. Both of them had a famous appetite for drink. Stravinsky was partial to scotch, and Picasso's last words famously were, "Drink to me, drink to my health. You know I can't drink anymore." Jean Cocteau would even draw a picture of a pipe-smoking Picasso helping a hammered Stravinsky. And this wouldn't even be the pair's only run-in with the law on this trip. Picasso would draw several pictures of the composer across their friendship, and one such picture he did in Naples. Stravinsky packed it into his suitcase to take back to Switzerland, where he was stopped by customs officers who thought the portrait was some kind of spy plan. They asked Stravinsky what the sketch was of, and he told them it was a portrait by Picasso. They told him that it looked like some kind of plan, to which he quipped, "It is a plan, the plan of my face." The pair would visit the ruins of Pompeii and Herculaneum, famously destroyed in the eruption of 79 AD. Picasso was particularly taken with the erotic frescoes he saw in Pompeii at this time. They would visit the Aquarium. Stravinsky described how it attracted the two men more than anything else in the city. They also travelled to a number of museums around the city, such as the National Archaeological Museum and the Museum of San Martino, but the National Museum was especially influential. One of Picasso's biographers, John Richardson, called the Farnese collection of classical sculptures held in Naples the most significant part of the trip for him, outclassing the antiquities he had seen in the Louvre in Paris. But the biggest artistic legacy of their trip to the city came in Pulcinella. Ever since 1916, Diaghilev had wanted his Ballet Russe to be a true modernist enterprise, wanting names like Stravinsky and Picasso to be associated with his company. And it was this desire that led to the creation of Pulcinella 2 years later, in 1919. The pair would return to their experiences in Naples, with Pulcinella based on a traditional Neapolitan stock character of the same name. The pair had initially been introduced to the character on this trip to Naples. Stravinsky and Picasso were both really impressed with the Commedia dell'arte, a form of Italian puppet theatre that Pulcinella is a stock character of. Stravinsky in particular wrote about his experience seeing the show, saying that they watched it in a tiny, crowded room which stank of garlic. He called Pulcinella a great drunken lout whose actions and words were consistently obscene. Though Commedia dell'arte is used in all of Italy generally to talk about this type of puppet theatre, in Naples specifically it's referred to as guardatella. So to get a greater understanding of the character of Pulcinella, what it means to the city, and what Stravinsky was trying to achieve with his writing, we visited Casa Guardatella, a puppet theatre in the heart of Naples, to find out more.
Guaratella is an ancient word that refers to the Pulcinella puppet show. Guaratella are from Naples. In Italy we have some different, very ancient and strong tradition with the puppets, and from Bergamo, from Romagna, Emilia-Romagna, and from Napoli are the most studied puppet tradition. And from Napoli, Guaratella is the main one. Pulcinella is the main character in Guaratella puppet show. It means that everything happens to Pulcinella.
So when Stravinsky was faced with the prospect of working with Picasso again, something so very Neapolitan was especially appealing to him, recalling his walks through the city with the artist. Talking about Pulcinella as a ballet, though, raises a number of problems. Stravinsky, up until this point, had largely been associated with his boundary-pushing, innovative music, which marked a total departure from previous styles. However, Pulcinella marked the start of his 3-decade neoclassical period, in which he veered far away from these avant-garde sensibilities in favour of a much more traditional approach. But Pulcinella isn't necessarily a true neoclassical work, since it's not all composed, so to speak, by Stravinsky. Rather, it's based on themes from music that was then attributed to Giovanni Battista Pergolesi. Some have even gone so far to describe the music of Pulcinella as an arrangement by Stravinsky, rather than an original composition at all. Musicologists later realised that the music that Stravinsky worked from in Pulcinella was not written by Pergolesi at all, but rather by other composers, such as Dutch nobleman and composer Unico Wilhelm. He didn't sign his name on his work, since music was considered an inappropriate pursuit for somebody of such high social standing to undertake, so many of his works fell under the realm of anonymous compositions, or were falsely attributed to other composers. But Stravinsky thought he was working from Neapolitan music, describing how he felt that it remained both popular and accessible, whilst retaining the exotic Spanish character associated with Naples, since Naples had been under Spanish rule for centuries, beginning after a conquest by King Ferdinand II of Aragon. Pulcinella as a character lends himself to neoclassicism, the traditional nature of the character tying in neatly to the traditional nature of neoclassical music.
Pulcinella is the opposite of a hero. It's a loser that will never die. And for his ability of survive is cathartic for the people who watch the show.
Italy is the home of the classical, especially compared to the avant-garde of Paris at the time, and this created something of a contrast. Picasso's cubist backdrop, simple, stark and dark blue, depicting a street in Naples and Mount Vesuvius, stands in contrast to the neoclassical music that Stravinsky produced, and the nature of the Commedia dell'arte as a traditional form of theatre. Eric Salzman also believes that the nature of the music as being developed from fragments left behind by somebody else's work creates a work where, as he puts it, the notion of an intensely personal artistic expression is intentionally omitted. Picasso and Diaghilev got along well making the opera, minus one incident where Picasso's more elaborate initial idea was literally stamped on by Diaghilev, infuriating Picasso so much that he destroyed his own sketches for the ballet's costumes. But the ballet was, for the most part, successful. In Stravinsky's eyes, it's a rare production where all the aspects harmonise, from the music to the subject to the story to the dancing, the costumes, all of it forms a coherent whole. He congratulated Picasso after the premiere at the Grand Opera in May 1920, calling him a miracle worker, remarkable, and possessing an amazing theatrical flair. So what is it about Pulcinella as a character that people still love today?
The joyful power of life that Pulcinella has. So when I saw Pulcinella first time, I fell in love. Because in the end, what happens to Pulcinella are problems. And Pulcinella is always one step to die. But he will never die. He'll never die. He can overcome the problems. And sometimes with foolishness, sometimes because he don't understand. It's not something logical, it's something unconscious. That you laugh, so you're laughing about it, so maybe these things can be overcome also for me. For this reason we talk about cathartic. We are talking about contemporary things, but in a language that is without time. So it's possible to everyone to arrive in that problem. What's a simple way to approach it? So it's like old music, traditional music. Traditional music have the same power and the same meaning.